Human offends alien girl during a ritual greeting, but human hears the ritual call his name. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The air inside the ritual chamber felt colder than the mountain wind outside, a thin bite of frost drifting across Evan Carter's cheeks as he stepped beneath the archway of carved stone. Light pulsed from the crystals embedded in the walls, soft and steady like a heartbeat he didn't recognize, their glow washing the floor in shifting blues that reminded him of moonlit water. He took one more step, boots whispering against the ancient rock, and every crystal brightened at once, responding to his presence in a way he couldn't explain. His breath caught. He wasn't supposed to touch anything. Just observe, stay quiet, and avoid messing up centuries of tradition he barely understood. But when the floor vibrated gently under his shoes, he instinctively stepped back. That single, harmless motion made the entire chamber fall silent. The hum died, the glow dimmed, and from across the room came a sharp intake of breath. Evan turned just in time to see her, Kaylee Wren, tall, poised, skin shimmering like polished turquoise in the shifting light, her ceremonial mantle cascading behind her like liquid fabric. She froze mid-stride, golden eyes narrowing the way a teacher stares at a student who just snapped a priceless artifact. Her expression wasn't anger. It was something colder, heavier, the quiet edge of offense in a culture Evan had been warned again and again not to offend. He opened his mouth to apologize, but a deep tone rolled through the chamber before he could speak, a slow, resonant call that pressed against his ribs like distant thunder. And inside that sound, faint, almost impossible, he heard a word carried through the echo, clear enough to raise goosebumps along his arms. Carter. He blinked hard, thinking maybe the acoustics were playing tricks on him. But the tone faded, and the crystal glow settled into a soft, steady dim. Kaylee Wren's gaze locked onto him, sharper now, wary, almost searching. Human, she said slowly, her voice carrying the weight of ceremony he didn't belong to. Why did the stones respond to you? Evan swallowed, trying to keep his voice level. I don't know. I didn't touch anything. She stepped closer, her silhouette cutting through the flickering light as if she were part of the stone itself. The ritual greeting is sacred. A single misstep can silence it. Her eyes flicked to the dimmed crystals, then back to him. But instead it called out. She paused, her voice dropping to something he couldn't quite read. It spoke your name. The chamber remained still, no hum, no glow, no movement except the faint rise and fall of her breath. Evan tried to answer, but the truth caught in his throat. Because he had heard it, clear as a voice in the dark. And the worst part, he felt, deep in his bones, that it wasn't a mistake. For a moment, Evan could not tell if the chamber had grown colder, or if it was only the weight of Kaylee Wren's gaze settling on him like frost. The crystals along the walls dimmed to a quiet glow, just enough to paint her silhouette in soft turquoise light, her expression unreadable. Evan forced a slow breath, trying to steady the uneasy rhythm in his chest. I did not mean to interrupt anything, he said, his voice low, careful. I just reacted. Kaylee Wren studied him with the focused stillness of someone who had spent her entire life guarding tradition. Our rituals do not react to accidents, she said. They respond only to intention. Her golden eyes flicked to the stone beneath his boots as though it might start speaking again. Then she stepped past him, the fabric of her ceremonial mantle whispering against the air as she placed her palm on a carved sigil etched into the wall. The lines of the stone brightened under her touch, glowing softly. Evan had seen her do this earlier when the delegation first entered, but now the light behaved differently, warmer, almost cautious. This chamber belongs to my people, she said quietly. For generations, its voice has recognized only those who share our lineage. It does not call the names of outsiders. She turned back toward him. Yet it called yours. He wanted to tell her it must have been the acoustics or an echo from the delegation in the outer hall. Something simple, something normal. But none of those things explained the way the crystals had pulsed, or the way the sound had seemed to form inside his chest rather than his ears. Maybe I misheard, he offered. Kaylee Rin shook her head once, a slow, deliberate motion. The stones do not speak in human language. They do not form human names. She stepped closer, and the chamber's pale blue light caught on the faint patterns along her skin, like markings revealed only when she was near the ancient walls. Evan felt the gentle hum return under his boots, faint as a heartbeat beneath layers of stone. The ritual is precise, she said. When an initiate enters, the chamber responds with a resonance tied to their lineage. If the stones called your name, it means they recognized something in you. Her voice softened, not warmer, but steadier. Something they should not be able to recognize. Evan's mouth felt dry. He had come here because he was the only engineer available on short notice, a last-minute replacement after a systems glitch grounded the original team. He was not a diplomat. He was not part of the ceremonial group. He was a visitor by accident and circumstance. I do not have anything your people would recognize, he insisted gently. I build things. I repair things. That is all. Kaylee Rin looked at him for a long moment, then touched her palm to his second symbol. A thin arc of light traced the floor around him in a soft circle, glowing like a pulse of breath. Evan stiffened. It is only a reading, she said. It will not harm you. The air inside the circle seemed to grow denser, a low vibration brushing his shoulders like a distant sound he could not quite hear. Kaylee watched the shifting light with a quiet intensity. The circle brightened. Twice. Then steadied. She inhaled, the smallest shift in her posture. The chamber does not react to humans, she whispered. Yet it reacts to you. The light faded slowly, retreating into the stone until the floor looked ordinary again. Her eyes lifted to meet his. You are not part of our lineage, she said. But the stones believe you are part of something. Evan felt the weight of those words settle around him. He did not know what the chamber wanted from him, but from the way Kaylee Rin stood, still, alert, almost reverent, he realized she did. Silence settled again, softer now, as if the chamber itself was waiting. Evan could hear his own breathing, steady but tight, the kind that came when he was trying very hard not to show how unsure he felt. Kaylee Rin stepped around him, moving with the measured calm of someone tracing a pattern only she understood. The crystals along the walls brightened at her passing, then dimmed again when she stopped. There is something else, she said quietly. Something you need to understand. Evan nodded, though he was not sure he was ready for another strange rule from a culture he had barely begun to study. Kaylee lowered herself to one knee beside a low stone platform, her fingers brushing across the carved lines with a touch that seemed part respect and part memory. The lines responded with a faint glow, revealing a symbol shaped like a spiral opening outward. This is the mark of calling, she said. It only appears when the chamber prepares for a formal greeting. Evan tilted his head. But the greeting was for your delegation, not for me. Correct, she replied. Which is why this should not have happened. She motioned for him to approach. He hesitated, but she lifted her gaze, and something in her calm steadiness nudged him forward. The moment his boot crossed the threshold near the platform, a soft resonance rose beneath the stone, like the pluck of a distant string. Kaylee Rin exhaled slowly. It responds to you again. Evan crouched, not touching the stone, but close enough to feel a faint warmth radiating toward his palm. Maybe it is reading body heat, he said, or it is detecting the movement of air. Technology can be strange. Kaylee Rin shook her head, her voice steady. This chamber predates most of our technology. It does not use sensors. It uses recognition. Evan opened his mouth, closed it again, and settled for a quiet. That does not make sense. Agreed, she said, which is why we need to understand what it wants. Her eyes drifted to his hands, then to his face. Not suspicious now, but thoughtful, as though she was trying to place him in a story she had not realized was unfolding. Tell me, she said softly. What did you hear when the chamber called? Out. Evan hesitated. He had replayed that echo over and over in his mind since the moment it happened. My name, he admitted. I heard it clearly. Kaylee Rin did not speak right away. Her expression remained calm, but he could sense the shift in her posture, a ripple of controlled surprise beneath a ceremonial stillness. If the chamber called your name, she said, it means you were not simply recognized. You were summoned. Evan frowned gently. Summoned for what? Kaylee looked toward the far wall where a cluster of crystals pulsed in a soft rhythm, almost like a beacon waiting for a response. The chamber only summons individuals who are meant to participate in the linking, she said. The word hung in the air, gentle but heavy. Evan tried to keep his voice level. And what is the linking? Kaylee Wren rose smoothly to her feet, the glow of the crystals outlining her figure in a muted turquoise halo. It is a ritual reserved for those whose presence changes the resonance of the stones, she said. It requires 2 individuals. One from my people. She paused, her eyes steady on his. And one chosen by the chamber. Evan's breath tightened. You mean me? Kaylee inclined her head once. That is what the chamber believes. The hum beneath the floor returned, faint but unmistakable, settling around his ankles like a tide rising in slow motion. Evan felt it reach upward, brushing the edges of something he could not name. Kaylee Wren watched him, her voice gentle but firm. Whatever is happening here, you are no longer just a visitor. He looked around the dim chamber, feeling the quiet attention of the stone, as if the walls themselves were listening. So what happens now, he asked. Kaylee Wren let the silence sit for a moment before answering. Now, she said softly, we see why it called you. The hum under the stone traveled upward in a slow, steady ripple, brushing against Evan's senses like a quiet breath he could not quite feel, but somehow recognized. Kaylee Wren watched him closely, her expression steady, though the faint shift in her posture suggested she was reading every small reaction he had. The crystals along the chamber walls brightened again, but not with the sharp intensity from before. This light was gentler, almost encouraging, as if the chamber no longer viewed him as an intruder, but as someone it expected. Kaylee moved first, stepping toward the inner passage leading deeper into the structure. The linking chamber is ahead, she said. If the stones intend to summon you, that is where the next response will occur. Evan hesitated. Is this safe? She paused mid-step. The ritual is ceremonial. It has never harmed anyone. Then, after a heartbeat, she added with steady honesty, but it has also never summoned a human. Her words pressed against him more firmly than the cold air drifting through the corridor. Evan swallowed, nodded, and followed her. The narrow passage curved gently, lit by thin veins of blue light running through the stone like natural circuitry. Their footsteps echoed softly. The deeper they went, the stronger the quiet resonance grew, subtle but constant. It felt like the vibration of a distant engine through metal, except here there was only rock and stillness. At the passage's end, the corridor opened into a smaller chamber, circular and quiet. It was different from the grand hall before. This room felt older, as if it had been carved before the rest of the structure existed. Its floor was smooth stone, its center marked by a single low pedestal shaped like a shallow bowl. Above it, crystals spiraled upward in a gentle arc, glowing faintly in swirling shades of blue and silver. Kaylee Wren stood beside the pedestal, her expression thoughtful. This room measures resonance between 2 individuals, she explained. Normally, it is used during the first greeting between our initiates. It reveals whether their presence creates balance. Evan stepped slowly toward the pedestal, careful to avoid touching anything. I do not know what balance means in this context. It is not about harmony, she said. It is about recognition. The stone does not respond to names the way you do. It responds to presence. She motioned lightly toward the pedestal, encouraging him to stand across from her. When he did, the chamber responded almost at once. A soft glow rose from the carved bowl, threads of pale blue drifting upward like mist catching light from an unseen source. Kaylee inhaled quietly, not in fear, but in surprise. It responds too quickly, she murmured. It should require time. Focus. Preparation. Evan watched as the mist spiraled upward, forming a loose column of light between them. His heartbeat steadied, oddly calmer than before, the same way he felt when he worked inside Complex. Machinery and everything clicked into place. What does this mean? He asked softly. Kaylee did not answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, placing one palm over her heart, the other extended just above the pedestal. The column of light shifted, bending toward her, then toward him, then toward the space between them. The chamber recognizes you, she said, not as one of us, but as someone it is willing to speak to. Evan frowned gently. I do not understand why. Kaylee's eyes softened, the first sign of something approaching warmth. Neither do I, she admitted. But the stones do not call without purpose. The column of light brightened suddenly, not with intensity, but with clarity, as if it had finally focused. A soft, resonant sound filled the chamber, low and deep, brushing the edges of Evan's hearing. Then, within the echo, a second tone, lighter and clearer, shaped itself into something unmistakable. Not a name, not a word. A simple, steady note that vibrated directly through his chest. Kaylee's eyes widened. "It chooses you," she whispered. The light dimmed slowly, settling into a soft, steady glow at the pedestal's base. The silence that followed was not empty. It felt like a message left in the air. Evan met her gaze, feeling the weight of a meaning he could not yet decipher. "So what does that make me?" he asked. Kaylee Rin looked at the pedestal, then at him. "It makes you someone the ritual will not ignore." The glow at the pedestal's base faded into a soft pulse, steady and rhythmic, as if the chamber were breathing in slow intervals. Evan stood still, unsure whether moving would interrupt something ancient and delicate. Kaylee Rin studied the pedestal with an expression that looked almost like reflection, the kind she might reserve for history rather than people. "The resonance has settled," she said quietly. "That means the chamber is ready to proceed." Evan raised his eyebrows slightly. "Proceed with what exactly?" She exhaled softly, the air leaving her lips in a slow, measured way that suggested she was choosing her words carefully. "The linking begins with alignment, but it continues with understanding. The chamber will test the connection between the two participants." Evan blinked. "I did not agree to be tested." "Neither did I," she replied gently. "But the stones do not ask for permission. They respond to presence, and they respond to truth." A faint warmth traveled upward through the floor again, subtle but unmistakable. The chamber had heard her. Evan shifted slightly, the sensation running through his boots like a light pressure, similar to standing on soft ground just before it sinks beneath your weight. "What does the chamber expect us to do?" he asked. Kaylee extended her hand, not to him, but to the pedestal. "Place your hand above the stone, but do not touch it. The chamber will sense your intention." Evan hesitated. Then he slowly lifted his hand over the glowing surface. The moment his palm hovered above it, the air grew warmer, wrapping around his fingers like a gentle current. Kaylee mirrored the motion on her side of the pedestal, her turquoise skin reflecting the light in shifting hues of blue. The glow between their hands brightened, drawing upward into a single thin line of light connecting the space between them. Kaylee's voice softened. "The chamber creates a bridge. It will show us if our presence forms harmony or dissonance." Evan focused on the glow, trying to steady his breath. "And if it is dissonance?" Kaylee shook her head. "It will dim. It will release us. Nothing more." The light brightened again, rising like warm breath caught in sunlight. Evan felt a faint pressure against his chest, not physical, but like a quiet awareness, as though the chamber were learning the rhythm of his breathing. The glow between their hands slowly expanded, forming a wider arc. Kaylee's eyes stayed on the light. "This is unusual," she said. "The chamber does not usually strengthen the connection this early. It must sense something in your presence." Evan managed a quiet, careful tone. "Something like what?" Kaylee looked at him, the light casting soft reflections across her features. "Recognition," she said. "Curiosity. Perhaps even trust." Evan swallowed gently. "You trust me?" Kaylee paused. She did not rush her answer. "Trust is not given quickly among my people," she said. "But the chamber does not amplify dissonance. It only amplifies balance." Before Evan could reply, the arc of light rose higher, curling upward like a ribbon caught in a silent breeze. The warm resonance pressed lightly against Evan's chest again, steady and calm, and the chamber responded with a gentle echo. Kaylee's eyes widened slightly, but her voice stayed even. "It has accepted the alignment," she whispered. "It means the connection is genuine." Evan felt the pressure ease as the glow softened into a calm pulse. He let his hand lower slowly. The chamber dimmed again, returning to its quiet, breath-like rhythm. Kaylee stepped back gently, her expression shifting with a new understanding. "Whatever this ritual intends," she said, "it has already decided you are part of it." Evan glanced around the chamber, feeling the quiet focus of the stone settle on him again. "So the chamber has chosen," he said softly. Kaylee nodded once. "Yes, and it chose both of us." The chamber's quiet pulse lingered in the air, subtle and steady, like a faint heartbeat beneath layers of stone. Evan stood with his hand still hovering near the pedestal, unsure whether lowering it further might interrupt whatever the ancient structure had decided. Kaylee Rin stepped back a pace, enough to study him without the pedestal's glow reflecting directly across her eyes. The alignment means the stones acknowledge our presence together, she said. But the linking tests more than that. It tests understanding. Evan let out a careful breath. I thought the alignment already showed that. Kaylee shook her head gently. Alignment shows potential. Understanding reveals truth. Her voice carried a calm steadiness, but Evan could sense something beneath it. Not fear, but responsibility. Whatever this ritual was, it mattered deeply to her people. She stepped closer to the pedestal again, placing her palm against one of the carved symbols along its side. The crystal arc above them dimmed, then shifted into a warm, pale glow. This is the chamber's way of asking us to continue, she said. It is inviting the next step. Evan took a small step nearer. What do we have to do? Kaylee gestured to a shallow indentation on the pedestal's surface. Place your hand here. I will place mine opposite. The chamber will read our intentions, our truthfulness, and our sense of connection. Evan hesitated. What happens if it does not like what it reads? Kaylee's expression remained gentle. The chamber does not harm. It simply closes. The ritual ends. That reassurance helped, though the air still carried a quiet weight, as if the stone itself were listening for what came next. Evan lifted his hand and slowly lowered it into the indentation. The stone was cool at first, then warmed beneath his palm, almost like it was adjusting to him. Kaylee placed her hand on the opposite side of the pedestal, mirroring his position. The glow brightened between them, and the soft resonance deepened, vibrating through the floor in steady pulses. Evan felt a gentle pressure around his chest, not painful, not overwhelming, but present. It reminded him of standing near a piece of machinery when it first powers on, that subtle awareness of energy beginning to flow. Kaylee kept her eyes on the light. The chamber is reading us, she said. It searches for tension, for hesitation, for the places where trust falters. Evan swallowed. I did not know I needed to be trusted. The ritual is never one-sided, she replied softly. Understanding cannot happen alone. The glow shifted from blue to a soft silver. The change made Kaylee inhale quietly. It responds quickly again, she murmured. That is unusual. Is that good? Evan asked. It means it does not sense resistance. The silver light rose between their hands, forming a calm, steady column. Evan felt the quiet pressure soften, almost like the chamber was exhaling. It is accepting the truth it finds, Kaylee said. Your presence does not disrupt the ritual. Evan looked at the gentle column of light, unsure what truth the chamber had found. I am not certain I understand why it chose me at all. Kaylee met his gaze, her voice steady. Perhaps the chamber sees something you do not. Before Evan could respond, the light dipped in brightness, then focused into a soft point that hovered between their palms. The sound that followed was gentle, like a single note played on an instrument he could not name. Kaylee's eyes widened slightly. The chamber honors the connection, she whispered. That means the ritual can now reveal its purpose. Evan felt the glow ease against his hand, settling into a quiet pulse. The chamber had accepted them. Kaylee lifted her hand slowly. It is time, she said softly. The stones will show us what it called you for. The soft pulse beneath the stone changed, settling into a slower, deeper rhythm that felt almost like a signal waiting for acknowledgement. Evan watched as the column of silver light thinned into a narrow strand, stretching toward the far side of the chamber, where the walls curved into a smooth arc. Kaylee Rin followed the movement with quiet focus. The chamber is guiding us, she said. It wants us to stand where the resonance is strongest. The strand of light drifted across the floor like a thin trail of mist, settling near a shallow circular platform set into the stone. Evan stepped toward it carefully, feeling the warmth intensify under his boots. Kaylee joined him, her turquoise skin reflecting the silver glow in soft, shifting tones. The platform rose slightly, no more than a few inches, just enough to feel deliberate. Evan glanced at Kaylee. Does it always do that? Only when it prepares to reveal something, she replied. And only to those it recognizes. The light along the walls dimmed to near darkness, leaving only the silver threads circling the platform and a faint glow from the crystals overhead. The chamber grew quiet, so quiet Evan could hear the slow, steady rhythm of his own breathing. Then a soft resonance, lighter than before, drifted down from the ceiling like a tone carried on a warm breeze. Kaylee lifted her chin slightly. The chamber is opening its memory. Evan blinked. Its memory? Centuries of recorded resonance, she explained. Moments when the chamber responded to someone it deemed significant. The glow brightened above them, forming a faint image suspended in the air. It was not sharp enough to see details, but Evan could make out the shape of two figures standing where he and Kaylee stood now. One was clearly of her species. The other was not. He frowned. That shape does not look like your people. Kaylee nodded slowly. It is not. Is it human? He asked quietly. She hesitated. Humans were not known to us when this ritual was carved into the mountain. The image flickered, then expanded into a swirl of light that wrapped gently around the platform, not touching them, but creating a circle of memory. Evan watched as the shapes shifted, merging into nothing, then reforming into something else, something closer to a symbol than a picture. It looked like two arcs crossing at the center, forming a single balanced point. Kaylee whispered, understanding. That is the mark of shared resonance. Evan tried to make sense of it. So the chamber thinks we understand each other? Not completely, she said softly, but enough that it continues the ritual. The light dimmed again, leaving the symbol lingering for only a breath before fading into the air. Another pulse rose from the floor, warmer now. Evan felt it settle like a quiet weight. Behind his ribs, not heavy, just present. I do not know what it wants from me, he admitted. Kaylee looked at him, her expression steady but softer than before. The chamber does not want anything. It reveals what is already there. Evan shook his head gently. I do not know what that means. It means, she said, that your presence affects the resonance. And that is not something the stones can fabricate. Another faint tone filled the chamber, lower this time, almost like a quiet confirmation. Kaylee inhaled slowly. It is asking one final thing before it shows its purpose. Evan straightened slightly. What does it want? Kaylee lifted her palm and held it hovering between them. It wants us to agree, she said softly. Not in ritual. In truth. Evan looked at her hand, steady in the dim light. Agree to what? She met his eyes, calm and sincere. To continue together into what it reveals next. The chamber will not open a path unless both participants choose it. The quiet hum rose around them, waiting. Kaylee's hand remained offered. Evan exhaled slowly, the decision settling in his chest with unexpected clarity. He lifted his hand toward hers, not touching, but close enough that the warmth between their palms bridged the space. The chamber responded at once with a soft glow that wrapped the platform in light. Kaylee whispered, the chamber accepts our agreement. The floor beneath them vibrated gently as the stone prepared to reveal what it had been holding. The platform's glow rose in a slow spiral, wrapping the air in soft silver light that felt warmer than any illumination Evan had felt inside the mountain so far. The hum beneath his feet steadied into a gentle rhythm, almost like the chamber was breathing in perfect sync with them. Kaylee Rin stood across from him, her expression calm but no longer distant. The ritual had drawn them into a space where formality and uncertainty mixed with something quieter and almost human. The spiral of light thickened, forming a circular veil around the platform. Through it, shapes drifted, faint and shifting, like memories carved into air. Evan watched one of the shapes sharpen, becoming a silhouette of a figure with broad shoulders, standing exactly where he stood now. The outline flickered, almost familiar. Kaylee's voice softened. The chamber is showing its chosen echoes. Moments when someone stood where you stand now. Evan felt the air thicken slightly, like the chamber wanted him to pay attention. But that shape, he said quietly. It does look human. Kaylee exhaled slowly. Yes, and that is not possible. Humans did not stand here in our recorded history. The shape dissolved into a soft pulse of light that melted back into the veil. Another shimmer formed, this one clearer. It showed two figures standing together on the platform, positioned almost exactly as Evan and Kaylee were now. Their hands did not touch, but hovered close, mirroring the choice he and Kaylee had made moments earlier. The symbolism was unmistakable. Kaylee watched the figures with careful eyes. This echo has been recorded only 3 times in our history. It appears when the chamber senses a connection strong enough to guide the linking. Evan's brow lifted gently. Does that mean it sees us the same way it saw them? It means, she said, that it believes we have something to learn together. The veil brightened suddenly, then slowly unraveled into a thin line of light that stretched upward to the ceiling. The chamber answered with a deeper resonance, warm and steady. Kaylee turned her gaze toward the rising light. This is the purpose, she whispered. The chamber reveals why it called you. The light split, branching outward into the walls. Symbols began to glow across the stone, forming a circular pattern around the platform. Evan watched as the pattern traced itself into existence, one symbol at a time. What do they mean? He asked. Kaylee reached out toward the nearest symbol, stopping just shy of touching it. These are markers of pairing, she said. Not in a romantic sense, but in purpose. They appear when 2 paths are meant to intersect. Evan tried to steady his breath. Are you saying the chamber believes our paths intersect? Kaylee nodded slowly. It believes our paths must intersect. The last symbol flared softly, and the resonance rose into a gentle tone that pressed lightly against their chests. Evan felt the sound settle deep inside him, warm and grounding. I do not know anything about your rituals, he admitted quietly. I do not know what I am supposed to be. Kaylee looked at him, and for the first time there was no ceremonial distance in her eyes. Only sincerity. You are not supposed to be anything, she said. The chamber does not call someone because of what they are. It calls them because of what they bring. Evan let those words settle in the warm glow. And what do you think I bring? Kaylee took a breath, steady and calm. Change, she said softly. Possibility. Perspective. The chamber sees value in your presence. The glow around them dimmed, settling into a gentle silver ring circling the platform. The ritual was not finished, but something important had shifted. The stones had spoken. The chamber had chosen. Kaylee lowered her hand from the symbol, her voice a quiet breath. The linking will reveal the rest. But whatever comes next, you were called for a reason. Evan felt the warmth beneath the stone pulse once more, as if agreeing. And the chamber grew still, waiting for the choice that would shape whatever came after. The chamber's glow softened to a low, steady shimmer, as if the mountain itself had taken a slow breath and was now waiting for the final truth to settle. Evan stood on the platform, his palms warm from the fading resonance, his pulse steadying even as the room held a quiet expectancy. Kaylee Wren stepped beside him, not across from him now, but close enough that the silver light touched them both in the same soft halo. Her voice lowered into a tone wrapped in reverence. The last phase of the linking is reflection, not spoken reflection. Presence. Evan looked at the circular wall as faint symbols began to dim one by one, like lanterns blown out in gentle succession. What does that mean for us? He asked. Kaylee watched the final symbol fade until only the soft glow beneath the platform remained. It means the stones will listen. They want to hear what your presence carries when you no longer try to shape it. Evan tried to quiet the impulse to analyze, to interpret every shifting detail. The chamber had chosen him long before he understood what it wanted, and all his questions had only led him here. So he exhaled slowly and let the silence settle. A low tone drifted through the air, warm and steady, brushing the space between them like a gentle touch. Kaylee's gaze lifted slightly. It is reading us together. The tone shifted, rising into a soft harmony that felt impossibly calm, like standing near the ocean just before sunrise. The stones brightened around the platform, forming a ring of light that seemed to mark the ground as something sacred. Kaylee stepped forward until she was standing exactly at Evan's side, her voice no louder than a breath. If the chamber senses discord, the light will divide. If it senses balance, it will merge. Evan glanced at her with a quiet attempt at reassurance. I do not feel discord. Nor do I, she said. But the stones will decide. The light around them pulsed once, then twice, as if weighing the space between them. Evan felt a soft pressure behind his ribs, not discomfort, but a gentle reminder that the ritual was reading his truth, his uncertainty, his sincerity, his presence. A moment later, the ring of light merged inward, forming a single steady glow at their feet. Kaylee inhaled sharply, not in alarm, but in awe. It accepts us. The hum beneath the stone deepened, a warm resonance that filled the chamber with a feeling Evan could only describe as acknowledgement. Not approval, not judgment, simply a quiet recognition. The glow brightened one last time, rising into a single beam that drifted upward like a lantern released into the night. The beam faded into the ceiling, leaving the room in a dim, calm stillness. Kaylee turned toward him, her expression open and unguarded for the first time since he had met her. "The chamber has revealed its purpose," she said softly. "It called you because your presence aligns with ours. Not by heritage, not by ritual, by truth." Evan felt the weight of that settle inside him, warm and steady. "So I did not offend the ritual," he said quietly. Kaylee shook her head, a faint curve of understanding touching her voice. "No, you completed it." The chamber's final glow dimmed until only the natural cool blue of the crystals remained. Kaylee looked at the now quiet platform, then back at Evan, her tone gentle. "The linking chooses pairs who can bridge two worlds. The chamber believes you can do that." Evan let the silence stretch, the meaning settling in layers he had not expected to carry. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady. "I am just human." Kaylee met his eyes, her golden gaze soft in the dim light. "And sometimes," she said, "that is exactly what the stones need." The chamber remained silent, its purpose fulfilled, its choice made clear. And, in that quiet, something unspoken lingered between them, as steady as the fading glow beneath their feet.